Hello, everybody. Welcome to this interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Core, if you're not aware, is an international recruitment company, and we deal all across the world in leisure, hospitality, retail, at mid to senior level for exec and non-exec positions. Now, we're running this interview series. We've been speaking to amazing entrepreneurs and business leaders and innovators who are doing lots of different things across lots of different markets and industries, and they can all be viewed on our website, which is www.corerecruitment.com, on YouTube, or very recently on Spotify as well, if you want to listen to those running around the park. Now, when I talk about entrepreneur, when I talk about innovation, and when I talk about commerciality, there is somebody who springs to mind for me, who is Gerry, who's joining us today. Gerry, how are you?
Hello, sir, all the way from Los Angeles. What a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the intro.
Now, I first met Gerry literally at the circus, which was kind of like, which is really an incredible kind of like part of his kind of like makeup that he's very, very, very proud of. And he now runs a phenomenal multinational business as well that we're going to get on to talking about a little bit. But Gerry, just taking us from kind of like, where you started to running kind of like Rooftop, which is kind of like, a big global kind of like, company now with multiple kind of like,
Yeah,
markets with a big growth
yeah.
plan and all of that kind of stuff. Literally, can you just tell us a bit about your background, kind of like, before you started all of this up? Because I think it's incredible.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I'm very proud of it. And by the way, just for the record, we use Core for all our recruiting needs, not only with Rooftop, but we for Wookie Hole, I have a family business, which I'll explain about that as well if you like. But just to say, it's a pleasure to be here. You know, you guys have been great. We've been working together a few years now, and you've always produced great people. So well done you for being very good at what you do. I really
I'll
appreciate
pay
it.
you for that
You,
separately. Thank
no,
you.
no, 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 you have. You've changed our business because what we're going to talk about over the next few questions really is all about the people, right? It is about the people. Everything's about people and the people you hire and how you treat them, that and the culture you build. And you are the people that make that happen by bringing great people to companies like ours. So thank you very much. So I don't forget to praise you towards the end. But let's get back to the question in hand. Let's get back to the entertainment. So yeah, so born into a circus. I'm the son of a circus owner. My dear dad ran away from the circus, and I was very lucky. I grew up, just surrounded by amazing people, an amazing family, really, of really alternative people to come to the circus, and you always felt they were part of something. And I think that really was a gift for me because it taught me the power of culture. There was an amazing culture because you've got to remember, circus wasn't. It was glitz and glam on the outside, but underneath it all, it was a tough old world. It wasn't swords and spangles. It was old lorries moving every week. It was mud up to your knees. It was hard work. It was 7 days a week, but it was for the love of entertainment. People just wanted to see people smile, and so that growing up with that really changes you, and it teaches you the power of entertainment, but it teaches you how important entertainment is to people. Not only the people that are performing the entertainment, but the people that are coming to see what you do. And then lo and behold, all those years of being in a circus, being a clown, I was a juggler, a fire breather, etc. And then I was in London, so that's its own circus, right? You're in London now. I spent 10 years in London before I started Rooftop Cinema Club. But essentially, what I did was, I think I really, when I look back on it, I combined my love of entertainment with my passion for film, and then that's where Rooftop Cinema Club comes from. And I sell popcorn just like the old man. That's what I do for a living. I sell popcorn. That's what pays the bills, and I love that. And I never thought I'd be in this world, but it's I just kept working hard and moving forward. And so my circus is everywhere. It's everywhere, from the programming to the popcorn to the bringing joy to people. It surrounds this business, and so yeah, I'm very
That's
proud of it.
brilliant.
And it is. I'll finish by saying I've gone from a big top to rooftop, is what people say to me. So I love that one liner. I use that quite a lot. Yeah.
I love that. Now, your
Yeah.
father was famous for many things, but one of the quotes that
Mm.
I really absolutely love is that he was really famous for watching the audience rather than watching the performers.
Mm.
And is that still in your instinct? Is that still part of your makeup in terms of what you do? And were there any other business lessons that you kind of like, you have your father's
Oh.
kind of voice in your head all the time?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Obviously, I missed that dearly, so I really appreciate you bringing that up. And yeah, there was I love this story, and so yeah, thanks again for mentioning it. It's very dear to me, and this idea that one of my things I've always talked about, because people always would say, "What was it like having a dad who owned a circus?" We're working on a TV adaptation at the moment. There's loads of stuff going on. He was like, "What was it like?" And he's like, "Well, you must have seen some amazing things." And I always tell this story. I said, "Yeah, no, definitely." I said, but I really used to try and understand what he loved about it. And I remember this one time I was a kid and I walked into the circus with him and he was holding my hand. And it was towards the end of the show and it's all, massive fanfare. There's literally wild animals, and there's jugglers, and there's all this color and showgirls. It really is the welcome. Well, have the this. I hope you've had the best day of your life. And I remember looking at Dad, thinking, "Oh, I wonder what what he loves the most about this." And I just remember that for about 5 minutes, he wasn't even looking at the ring, and I was amazed by this. I was like, "Why is he not looking at the spectacle in front of him? He was looking at the audience. He was looking around." And I remember he got in there, and it's and the light, and I just remember his big smile came on his face, and his eyes lit up. His eyes were like the circus ring; they were full of color and joy. And I remember from that moment, honestly, I was so young, maybe 5, 6, maybe 7. I just remember thinking, that's what he's into, and he would just watch the audience. And so I knew from a very young age that that's what really turned him on to what he does. That's that was his purpose. The joy of other people was what he did it for. Don't get me wrong, he loved all the showbiz and the bombast of what he was producing. And he toured shows all over the world, massive shows. But it was the audience which got him out of bed in the morning. So that was great. And so I learned that very early on. And I certainly now I run an entertainment company. I completely I lean into that as well. I can completely see why. And when I go to a rooftop, I don't even watch the movie. I watch the audience, and that gives me the greatest feeling in the world. And then what else did I learn? Thanks, just to finish your question. Yeah, absolutely. I learned about family in the circus I mentioned earlier. So I've tried to build a culture of love and understanding. That's been really important to me. We hire diverse people. Diversity is key. Hiring the best people and keeping it interesting, and that's what it's about. And in the circus, there was no judgment. You just wanted to hire the best people to do the best job. That was always brilliant, brilliant. And I think the last thing I'd say is Dad always said to me, Gerry, give them something new. Well, you probably label that as innovation. He was always famous for having, someone who would fit into a bottle, this big plastic bottle, or he was famous for getting a French wire walker to walk across the twin towers of Wembley, or he was famous for bringing the first black clown in the female clown into England at a time when that just wasn't done. He was always trying to look for something different that would get people talking and would open it up to culture and to say, look, there's culture everywhere. You need to look at the circus was the place where people were accepted first. And so he always taught me to do something new. And so that's with rooftop. I've not been able to do, I've got no wild animals on my rooftop. That's not a thing now. We don't
Mhm.
accept that anymore. And that's good. But I tell you what, our programming is the best. I'm very proud of it. It's constantly evolving. We're always supporting everyone in our program. We're always doing something different. We're doing Pride this month. We do Black Cinema. We do female led directors. We were doing that before anyone else was doing it because I thought I want to always make sure that our programming speaks to people and people feel that there's always something they can come and watch at rooftop. So that's the way I've been able to innovate. I've not just been right. The studios come to me, the new Fast and Furious out, even though it's a great movies. I'm not knocking them. We don't just play what the studios wanted to play. We play what we think matters, and we know that, and we try and find the audiences for those movies. And we've proven that it's correct. We'll program over 5,000 different movies this year. No other cinema's doing that amount of programming. Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
from
yeah.
kind of like a family-owned kind of like business, it wasn't that you just went straight into doing rooftop like from that, like through you had a proper career with kind of like working with brands like Cirque du Soleil, Disney, that kind of
Yeah,
side of things.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, how did that go going into those kind of like businesses and kind of like, was that a lot of structure that you took from those businesses that added to the creativity? What lessons did you learn from being with organizations, especially, I mean, Cirque du
Yeah, I
Soleil,
love that.
such iconic businesses, right?
Yeah, very, very lucky. That's my PR days. They were the best. Sitting in an office, I always say the best job ever is a PR job. I don't know if I'm sure some PRs would agree and disagree with me, but I had the best time. I worked really hard, but I sort of met some crazy people and had some great times. But yeah, absolutely. Again, that was a bit of I read a book many years ago, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it was all about getting into as many different businesses you can and learning what you can and moving forward. And I love that. I love that book. And Dad was always saying that. Dad was like, get as much experience. So I had this thing through my 20s that I'd start a job, I'd do for a few years, then I'd move on. And just as I got to the top, where most people get comfortable, I'd move on. And I did it for that reason. I wanted to learn. So Disney, yeah, definitely, Disney definitely taught me about magic, how to sell, how to really, they call it the happiest place on earth, right? That's Disney's mission. So they taught you, the power of storytelling and magic. Cirque was about spectacle, definitely, putting on a great show. I love what I loved about Cirque. I remember Cirque when I think it was Battersea. I went and saw them before they came to the Royal Albert Hall. And one thing I remember about Cirque is getting there and being from a circus, you just know, but the tent was immaculate. Even all the stake covers on, so they pitched into the concrete and they take them obviously weeks to pitch it up, not even into grass. But every single stake was covered in a sleeve that was immaculate white. Oh no, I don't know any other circus in the world to do that. So I just remember Cirque being like, oh, the detail is amazing. And I was like, how amazing they've got this circus tent But apart from the stakes and the ropes, you could be in the most beautiful building in London. They made those circus tents. They're fantastic, but they made them look regal. That's how circus used to look. So from Cirque, I learned the quality aspect, the detail, and about always making sure that what people saw and what people touched was fantastic. And yeah, and I think a little bit of what I learned from Cirque, as much as that as well, was this idea that the show begins before the actual performance begins. So what I loved about Cirque, you go into the theatre or the tent, and there'd always be something happening. Some a clown throwing popcorn, or the lights and the visuals were always amazing. So again, when you come to Rooftop, you're not just coming to sit in a box. There's nothing wrong with cinema. I'm not saying that. That's that you're there for the movie. With Rooftop, it's like a show. You get there, you play games, the music's cool, the lighting's good. We've thought about where you're going to sit and look at the views. We've got a good cocktail menu to complement the movies. It's the same thing. There's a show before the show, and then after you've had this amazing hour, probably you then sit down and watch your favorite movie on the big screen as the sun sets and the stars begin to sparkle. So that's a little bit like a show. We've done the pre. So Cirque taught me about that as well. Yeah.
Love
And
that.
yeah, also just
Now,
examples of that. Yeah.
traditional cinema is facing so many kind of like structural pressures at the moment in terms of kind of like, release dates and all the different kind of
Uh-huh.
all the different negative kind of like things at the moment. And you've just alluded a little bit to how like Rooftop is such a different concept to kind of like others. Like, can you just give us a little bit more insight as to kind of like how those kind of spends work, how you're engaging people and not programming 5,000 different movies a year? Can you just give us a bit of insight as to what's popular and what kind of like maybe hasn't landed as well as you thought it would have done?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. Yeah, look, I think one thing with Rooftop, funny enough, cinemas now, I think cinemas are starting to realize it's no longer just a ticketed event, right? When you used to go to the cinema, traditional cinema, it literally was about buying your ticket, going in, grabbing a popcorn, sitting down, watching a movie, and leaving. That's fine. That's great. It's a wonderful experience. I still go and do that on a regular basis. But now people want more. They want more than ever. They want a connection. You know this. People, it's more. It's a shared. It needs to be authentic, especially the younger generation. They need to feel they're part of something. They need to have that emotional connection. So I'm starting to see a lot of cinemas doing more, where they're doing kind of more movie nights, club nights, doing more stuff before the movie. That's what we've been doing for 15 years from day one. When I started this business, it was like, I've got to bring the social and the celebration back to film watching. That's what it was about. I used to tell this story about my parents. I was like, what did you do when you went to the cinema? They're like, oh, it was brilliant. We used to go to the fish and chip shop and, we'd eat fish and chips. Then we'd hang out. Then we'd watch a movie. Then we'd go out after and hang out in the park and talk about the movie. I was like, yeah, I don't do that. That's not how I go to the cinema. So I think that's come full circle, and that's what's happening now. And I feel that that's what's happening now across. We do that at Rooftop. I feel more cinemas are doing that. And then in terms of the programming, it's all about that. It's about finding stuff that's just really connects. So one of the big things we're doing, which is really working, is we're doing TV marathons. So we're not even showing classic movies all the time. People come along and they'll come and see like Gossip Girl, and we'll put on the best 3 episodes of Gossip Girl. Christian, it's packed, and it's proper hardcore fans there, or we got the Golden Girls, that's coming. No, the Golden Girls, that's massive for us. That stuff's really hitting, to be honest. So that's just like fan base kind of euphoria stuff is really working. We've done stuff. Most of the stuff, the family stuff is good. We'll do family stuff where you get a Hulu dancer before. We'll do the Grinch where you get to meet the Grinch character. To be honest, anytime we do anything quite alternative like that, it actually seems to work. In terms of what's not hitting, I don't think there's a lot we've done really. Occasionally we'll do. If we do comedy nights, it's got to be the right comedian, stuff like that. That doesn't always sell unless it's the right content. So you can hit and miss with the content there. But in terms of movies, we found that when we put something together that's more than a movie, it tends to do really well. I tell you what's massive as well, drag me to the movies, we call it. Drag nights, drag artists introducing and doing a drag show before the movie. Now, the classics are things like The Birdcage, they work really good. But we even did one the other day where we did Friday the 13th and we did it with horror. People loved it. So we had like a horror drag show and it was amazing. And so even that's swapping across kind of genres of movies as well. But again, what it comes down to, it comes down to people just want to be entertained. People want to see stuff that's different and people want to be part of a diverse culture. And it really works. So that's the stuff. And that's really good. And we're really proud of that. And I'll just finish by saying, my head of programming, shout out to the programming here, Leslie and RJ. Leslie is our head of programming and she works a full-time job with us. She's a busy person. And she watched 400 movies last year. Well, that's more than a movie a day with a full-time job. I don't think her husband's left her yet, but they're probably. I think he must love movies as well because I can't see how they survive. No, but he's great, and I think that says everything. I think we put our money where our mouth is, and we've got a programmer that truly loves and is passionate about film, and it shows because the stuff they put on really works. Yeah.
And you guys operate across like some pretty cool places like London, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, like the
Yep.
list kind of like, goes on. I guess first question is how do you remain competitive in all of those very competitive marketplaces? And I guess also if there was one market where your programming can really push the envelope, where do you think people are most open to the more risky kind of stuff?
Well, that's a good question. That is. I think at the end of the day, it's easier to scale a product, but scaling an atmosphere is tough. So that's what we've had to. We want our job has always been, and my job, and it's what I've always been trying to work out is how do I make sure that wherever we are, whether it's Chicago, New York, or anything like that, how do people feel that it's Rooftop as soon as they walk on? And I think we nail that by making sure it's regionalized, making sure we have good regional programming. We look and study the market. What we'll find with Rooftop is in the first month or two, you'll see quite a lot of alternative stuff happening. Our programming will be jumping around quite a bit. And the reason that is because we're testing. I've always taught the team to test fast and test cheap. In other words, look, guys, if you put on two or three movies and they don't sell and we lose money, I don't mind. I just want to know that people are watching the right kind of stuff. I don't think every company would do that. I think a lot of companies like, no, no, put your guaranteed sellers on and that's it. No, no, we don't mind. I want to know that I'm speaking to the people. You've spent your money coming to my cinema. I want to make sure that I'm going to give you the best damn experience I can. And that starts with the ideas I'm putting forward to you and what you're going to spend your money on. So we do a lot of testing. We keep it regional with all the staffing. We talk to people locally. We talk to our staff. What do you watch? What are people into? I think that's how we start to nail it. And then in your answer to your question about City, that's a good one. Look, man, I still think I love I love New York. I love LA. I've lived here for 9 years, but I still love going back to London. London's still got it all. It's still the most international city in my eyes. And so actually, I think when we try stuff, we try a lot of stuff in London, probably London, New York, I'd say are the two where we have the most fun and we can do stuff that's a bit crazy and out there and just see what the response is. But I'd have to say it's London, to be frank. I really do. I still think it's, yeah, the most international city. Yeah.
Now, you guys are probably in your 12th season now, something like that, in terms of kind of like, I mean, we forget about COVID and all of that kind of stuff as well. And you're
Yeah, we started 15 years ago, but 12 over in America. Yeah, we're coming up just past that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
nice. And then in terms of like that demographic, because like looking at the numbers and the figures and all of that kind of stuff, your demographic's always been pretty skewed towards the 25 to 35-year-old, that kind of
Yeah,
bracket. But have
that's
you
correct,
been
Jim.
retaining them as they're kind of like getting into their early 40s, mid 40s? Not saying that I'm part of the
Ooh,
audience, but
good
that
question.
kind of like side of things. Like, are you retaining those people and attracting a new audience? And what are you doing to kind of sustain that loyalty?
Yeah, yeah. These are great questions, by the way. Yeah, so I think one of the great things about Rooftop, and one of the things we think it's a business that, we're going to scale big soon. We've just been trying to get the right amount, right quality through the venue. One thing we're quite lucky is that what we found is that we're moving with the times. So when I first started this business, it was literally my DVD collection. That's how funny. I literally dragged it out of my lounge at Stoke Newington, North London, and I was literally playing those DVDs. I'd licensed them obviously, but I had to license the film. But it was Top Gun and Back to the Future and Dirty Dancing and The Goonies and and all those kind of movies which I loved. And at the time I was that kind of right demographic. I was in my late 20s, so I started playing all those movies. And now what you find, it's those kind of slightly older movies, the 90s movies, the 2000 movies. So we're moving with the generations, and the biggest selling movies are of that 25 to 30. So that is quite good because as a business, we're very lucky. Our content moves with the times, so that's definitely working. So I'm seeing that. What are we doing for the future? Are we attracting the 40-year-olds? What's been interesting is now we're starting to see like we're doing movies to drink beer to. That's become really popular. So we're starting to see more. Initially, we were more of a female demographic, which still stands true, is 70% female. But I'm definitely seeing more kind of stuff that is meaning that all ages have started to get into it. We have the classics from Casablanca, and that brings an older one. It is harder to attract the 40 plus for sure, because I think, from my experience, I'm 44, I've got two kids. Yeah, I don't go out, 20% of what I used to. So that's a fact. You're not going to get me out. But I think what's happening with Rooftop, because it's now established as a quality night out, it is kind of the Soho house of open air screenings. if people in that we are finding that people what they'll do is make whereas in my generation might go to a nice restaurant, they might come to Rooftop instead because they know they're going to get a quality night out. It's reasonably priced. It's more than a normal cinema, but in terms of if you have the whole night, it's probably cheaper than going to a restaurant, a really nice restaurant. So we're finding that people coming for the quality, it's definitely helped us to attract that older audience for sure.
Nice. Now, there's a lot of people who are going to be watching this who are maybe running really great businesses, but based in one city or one location or one country.
Yeah,
And they'll be looking
yeah,
kind of like, what you've managed to build, because you're targeting kind of like 15, 20 more venues kind of like across the US market, you know what I mean? And
that's
how
right.
that's
Yeah.
grown from kind of like, one site. What gave, what gave you your break? Like, you're not the Beatles, I get it, but what gave you your break into America? What gave you that kind of like that first pop-up or that first thing that you kind of did? And was it a big step to kind of think, right, we're going to go right in?
Yeah, I love that. Persistence, obviously, is what gave me my break, and the belief that we can do anything. That was definitely it's crazy. That being an entrepreneur, I think you have to be a little bit crazy. I think we're very lucky to have started in England. I do. It's amazing here in America, and there's so much opportunity, but it can be quite hard to start stuff up from scratch. I think for younger people because there's so much risk and cost. Whereas we was able to hone the business and bring it here to England, I think it's much easier to do that. But I think we learned, like most people think, I've learned a lot of lessons. We should have definitely, you can do 10x here when you do well, but just be aware of things like, insurance rockets, permits, and stuff like that. It's really still quite antiquated. And it's a shame because there's so much opportunity. Like I said, I live here. This is my home. I love this country, but they really make it hard sometimes with permits and red tape. It's very bureaucratic, very expensive. So your risk definitely is much higher. Lawsuits are much more common here. You have to really watch your back with that stuff and employee laws. So I'd say to anyone coming through, definitely look at all the employee laws, look at all the insurances, do your sums on that stuff. We kind of just got here and learnt the hard way. And definitely in the early days, we're just getting bills. We were like, insurance went from 6,000 to, pounds roughly to, we was at one point we was paying 100 grand for the similar car. Yeah, that's a massive increase for a company, and there's lots of insurance here that you don't even have to have in England, for example. So I think, but at the same time, America suffers because I think if you, as a business, you go to places like Dubai or you go to Hong Kong, you'll probably look at it and go, right, what's the culture? How different is it? What have I got to do? I think because people think that we speak English, we definitely were, a little bit, what was it, wet behind the ears or something like that, they say. But we were definitely a little bit we came in here wide eyed and learned the hard way because actually, just because the culture is totally different. The culture is different. And actually, I think America gets a hard time for that. Just come here, respect the culture, work with it, but understand that it's very different from England. It's just the language is the same, but lots of other things aren't. And it's much more cutthroat here. People will really, they go after you here a lot more. And so you have to be really open to more challenges. But of course, that's what life. The bigger the challenge, the greater the person you become and the greater the business. And that's why, at the same time, money flows much quicker here. So if you've got a good idea and you execute it well, if you do well here, you will take over the world. And so it's definitely we're thankful for that, and we're thankful for the American people. I'm lucky to be British. They love British people here, and it's great being a Brit in America. They make us feel really welcome, and so that itself is a massive plus for us as a British company. But I'd check out the Department of Trade. I've got to say the British government are amazing. They've been very supportive here. They really have lots of courses and lots of help to help entrepreneurs. If you've got anyone in Britain wanting to come to America, definitely get in touch with the Department of Trade. They are fantastic resources. They're brilliant at helping you just to set everything up. They'll put you into contact with the right kind of people, and their job is to really help British businesses succeed in America. So I just want to shout those guys. They've been a fantastic support.
Very cool. So give me the name of the association again.
So Department of Trade, the
All
British
right,
government,
perfect.
it's stuff like Visit London as well, but they, you can work with those, but it's really literally the Department of Trade. It's the offices over here that help British businesses succeed in America. They've been fantastic. So anyone just get in touch with the local government. They do help you. They'll help you find venues. They'll put you in good touch with good kind of, local suppliers and stuff like that. That's their job to help you grow. So, and they'd be great. But again, I did that when I got over here. I just met someone who introduced me to someone at an event. Whereas I'd known more, I'd probably done a lot more prior research before coming to America. Yeah.
So 29 to 44, 15 years in terms of like running Rooftop from incubation right the way through to, global business on that side of things. My next question was going to be about what you've tweaked in your leadership style or how your approach to leadership has maybe changed over that period of time. I know you've just alluded to some of those points, but What
Yeah, yeah.
filters have you kind of got in place now? What things are you doing differently, kind of like from a day-to-day basis, kind of like, now that
Yeah, no, yeah. It's good stuff. Yeah, yeah. I get what you're saying. I think the big thing you do is you start to grow. You've got to delegate, right? Everyone knows that, but delegation is key. I think when you're a founder initially, you want to just do everything yourself. You want to have control, and you can't micromanage. You've got to give people autonomy. You've got to make sure that people have space to breathe and do a great job. So definitely, letting go, becoming less of a kind of like hands-on and more just kind of strategic. That's definitely been something that you've got to just learn as you grow the business, and you go from having two or three employees to 150 employees, and it's a big change. So that was key. I think that was definitely, I haven't. It's the same thing. One thing that hasn't changed is it's always completely guest focused, completely employee focused. I love my employees. I know that they are the oxygen of this business. So I do my best to look after. And I think as you grow, I think as you start to grow a business, everyone talks about you've got to be efficient, and you've got to, of course, you've got to watch the cash. You've got to make sure the cash flow is going, but you've got to make sure that at the end of the day, it's about quality product and how you drive revenue to that product. They're the key things. But really, it's about consistency. That's what I've really learned growing a business. It's what I've tried to do with Rooftop is that I could have opened another 5 or 10 venues, but they wouldn't have been very good. We would have stretched the staff too much. So what I've tried to do is create consistency. And so even now, I've still got areas I'm still trying to make better. I want to improve the F&B revenues and how consistent our delivery of services. But consistency is the key behind any great business. To be consistent, I'm better to do 8 to 10 venues consistently well than to run 15 or 20 with lots of gaps. And so I think that's the other thing you learn as you grow in a business. Just keep consistent. Don't grow too quick. Don't grow too slow either, but don't get greedy. Make sure you're consistent. And when you're consistent, the opportunities come your way. If you try and just do it for the money, you've heard that, do it just for the money, it never works. And so we've turned down stuff in Dubai and in Barcelona. And funny enough, we did that. And once we started turning down all these different, we were spending a lot of time looking at all these different options. Once we turned that stuff down, within about 9 months, we got investment and we started to really grow. Unfortunately, the investment was just before COVID. So that's a totally different story. But we're still thankful because that investment helped us save our business. But my point was, once we started to focus and become consistent, we found started to become very successful.
excellent. And was there a
Yeah.
moment, Jerry, where you were kind of like, standing on a rooftop in New York, showing a movie, something like that, where you really thought, I've made it now. This is it. Like, it's big time. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, thanks, man. I've had a couple of. Well, I'm gonna tell you one story. It's like the one story. I was actually stood on a London rooftop, and I took my socks off because they were so wet from the rain, and I squeezed them out over the side of the roof, and that's when I decided to go to America. So I was like, this has got. I love it here, but Jesus Christ, I've got to do something else. So that was definitely a moment there. But you know what? I think when I first came to America, I did New York, and we sold out our 2 months before we'd opened our cinematic doors. So that was a big thing to bring a concept and go, is it culturally relevant? Do they want to watch the same movies? Top Gun's American, but are they kind of over it from watching it on, satellite TV? You just don't know. You don't know if the culture is going to move. Maybe it's too cheesy for America. I don't know. But when we sold out those 2 months prior, that was massive for me. Definitely, man. And then to go to about 2 months after that, I went to Hollywood and I was on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. You can see all the stars, and we were selling that out. That was huge. So I thought, yes, they get this concept. That was definitely a huge moment for me, knowing the concept worked. But to be frank, the moment I really knew it worked was actually before America. At the end of year 2 in London, Amex called me, American Express, and they said to me, Jerry, this was Amex Black Card at the time, they can basically do anything for you. And they said, Jerry, you can call me up and I can get you a helicopter to land in a football pitch to deliver you for a game. Money can't buy experiences is what we do. But I can't seem to get a ticket for your cinema. So no joking. I've got this client who wants a ticket, and look, we're sold out. I said, I'm really sorry. I said, but if you want to, you can sponsor me, and you can definitely get access to tickets. And so at the end of year 2, I put together and got my first major sponsor with American Express. I knew then that I was
Wow.
onto something cool, and thank you, Amit. They were great partners, and that was my first. And after that, we were sponsored by British Airways and Visa and American Airlines and Grey Goose, and we've had all these amazing partners over the years who want access to something which is amazing and different, like Rooftop Cinema Club. They want their customers to come and have access to these kind of things. So that was definitely my moment. I thought, yeah, I've got something good here, and I just need to keep working hard to make it amazing. and the
That's
people
an
will come.
amazing story. It's an amazing.
Yeah, yeah, funny, yeah, yeah,
I think for
yeah.
most
Thanks,
business
Emmett.
leaders, if they could maybe flash back 10 years and look at a skill that they should have developed, I think the last 10 years, arguably, it's probably marketing, social media, influencers, all of that kind of side of stuff has been so
Yeah,
incredible in businesses in the next 10 years. Everyone's talking about the next 10 years being about AI, you know what I mean, in terms of like, that kind of like side of things. Like, what are you doing kind of like currently to like, in terms of like the next 10 years? Because you're looking at growing another kind of like 15, 20 sites. You're looking at developing the business. I'm sure there's more countries that you're looking at going into as well, and more partnerships and deals and all of that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah,
How are you
yeah,
upskilling
yeah.
yourself for the next phase of your
Yeah, it's really, yeah, really great question. Yeah, no, look, we're definitely fans of AI. I think you can't deny this stuff. I think you've got to be careful in terms of the content you put out because I think we don't want it to affect the film industry. I know there's a whole thing, and we agree with that. It can't replace actors and stuff like that. I don't think that's right. But it can, of course, help us do our jobs better. And that's what I've had to kind of, I think there was definitely a reluctance from some of the team in the early days. They were scared, is it going to take my job? And I was like, no, it's going to take away all the admin so you can do your job better. So program team will use it creatively for their admin, but they're not using it to program all the programs because they want to do that with the human touch. So that's definitely something we've been good at, and we're definitely going to keep embracing AI and using it across our websites and social channels for sure. I think for us as well, what I've always said to people and the team as well is like anytime we've not done our job properly is when we've accepted that things are good enough instead of them being great. So we've had a couple of times where, I think in the early days we'll keep those seats. They're okay. They're not. It's what I've learned the last few years. As soon as we can invest in better headphones, comfier seats, a better screen, we do it because it's about being great. If you can't just good enough is not good enough. If you're good enough, you'll just stay good enough. If you always aim to be the best from not just the service you give, but to the quality of the experience, to how you deliver your message on socials, through to the atmosphere you create, you're going to be great because that's what people respond to, and that's what people will come back. And so for me, it's making sure that it's to do with excellence, right? Excellence is a habit, not a one-off event. And so anytime we've found that we've not cut corners, but waited a bit longer to put something in, I found that people haven't responded well to that. So I would say to anyone running the business, just don't. It's never settle for good enough. It's got to be great, and you will never look back. And that's about quality product, right? That's what that's about. So I think for us, it's making sure that we're using AI, we're focusing on creating the right atmosphere online. That's what we're going to sell. That's what we've got to master. Walk to any rooftop, whether it's going to be in Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, America, and how do we make them feel this emotional connection as soon as they get on? That's what you've got to figure out. So for us, it's about how we can know our audiences better, understanding the data, programming for our audience, using technology to understand, make sure that we can be more personal. Next time we want to send a newsletter that says, "Oh, you've been to Dirty Dancing and some other a sort of rom-com. How about this one? It's personalising the experience. We're trying to do lots of work at the moment to make sure if you've got an anniversary and we know about it or you've told us about it, as soon as you get to the box office, we're able to talk about that moment. So that personalization piece, which technology can, that's how we're doing. Because at the end of the day, people can spend their money anywhere. But if you make them feel really connected, you're really special, and you care for people, I truly believe they'll keep coming back. Why wouldn't they? I know you know this, right? The brands that I buy and the places I go are the places where I feel connected to. I feel emotionally connected to. So our job really is to keep making sure we make great experiences that people can really are emotionally and connected to, and really make them feel joyous, actually. And that's our mission, to create magic, wonder, connection, and joy every time someone comes on the rooftop. So that's what we're going to keep working on. And I truly believe if we do that, our rooftops will keep working. And people need entertainment. So I think we're lucky. I think we're one of those industries. As long as we keep focusing on a great guest experience and quality, I do believe we'll keep growing and people will keep coming back. Yeah.
So before we get into our last couple of questions, really important question.
Yeah.
Who would
Yeah.
play? We're making a movie of the life of Gerry Cottle. Who's going to play you in the movie, Gerry?
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. They used to say I look like is it Marv out of Home Alone, the wet bandit with the big hair and the funny looking nose. So that used to be that guy. No, who would play me? Oh God, I don't. It's a good question. There is one actor who looks like me. I don't know who's a fun jolly guy. You tell me. That's a great. I've never been asked that question. I need to think about
Never
an
been
answer
asked
to
that
that.
question, really? Oh,
I've
you've
never been
got
on. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I truly thought I would have done. Who'd play me? Yeah, I can't say Brad Pitt, Christian, because I'm more armpit than Brad Pitt. So I can't say someone like that. Do you know what I mean? There we go. How about that? Okay, I've got an answer, but got a good joke for you. Yeah,
Excellent.
what armpit and Brad Pitt.
So last kind of couple of questions, but in terms of like
Yeah,
a wall that you've run into that you would stop other entrepreneurs from running into, or maybe a
yeah.
mistake that you've made that kind of like, not that you wish you could go back and kind of correct because like you're in the position that you're in now and it's worked out fantastically well for you, but what kind of like, what would you say that you would go back and change?
The thing we've most struggled with is because we're sort of, and this is also barrier to entry, so it's good as well, and it's now one thing. But just we assumed that again, the assumption that we'd be able to get the permits and licenses just the same as we were in England. We didn't do enough research on the local sort of municipalities. And so we've really had to educate the cities about what we are and who we are. So I think we should have probably, in the early days, spent more time and more money really getting more professionals. Now we do a good job because we know the right people and they can tell our story. But we've definitely that slowed us down in the early days. We were, we went to this is great Texas story. That part of we love Houston. It's probably one of our best performing venues. But we were licensed to the rodeo in Houston for the first 3 years. We got there and the city just, God bless them, they were just like, they didn't know what to do with us. They're like, well, you're not a music venue. You're not a cinema because you're on a rooftop. We haven't got a box for you like that. And literally we've had to create boxes with the local, with the local building permits and stuff like that. So I think making sure especially if you're doing something that is, kind of, um, it's like us, it's not been done before. There's innovation really involved. It's just making sure you get the research done before. We spent a lot of time trying to solve problems where we could have spent a bit more time researching them and being a bit more together. So I'd say that's a big factor. Yeah, probably. Just making sure you spend time with aces in place, as I call it. Don't be. I've never been scared to use a consultant or a professional. Don't do it yourself. There's people out there who can do it much better and much quicker for you. We, in the early days, I think, were probably nervous to spend money on those kind of individuals, but actually, they're the people that change your business and make things happen. Go to core recruitment and get the right professionals involved, and you'll be winning. How about that? That's
Love
the
that.
truth,
Thank
right?
you.
No, no, I mean it.
Love
I
that.
mean it. It's true. Yeah, don't
So
stop trying to do it yourself. Yeah,
15 years from now, I mean, we're obviously like going to do a follow-up interview, kind of like, because I want to stay on your guest list. But I mean, but 15 years from now,
yeah,
where do you see like Rooftop at that point? Kind of like, what's your dream? What's your aspiration for the business,
yeah,
for
yeah.
that period of time?
Oh, 100%. So even though our mission is to create connection, wonder, and joy under the stars, because it really is about the memory, that's what we're trying to create with everyone feels. But actually, to be the leading purveyor of rooftop experiences around the world. I truly believe, we're already in some of the hardest cities. We've been in London 15 years. We're doing great business this summer already. Because again, people know that they come and get a good time with us. So for me, I think we can have at least, I think this could be in every major city in the world. And some cities can be two or three. That's the dream. If you think about it, there's not really you've got rooftop restaurants and hotels and stuff like that, but no one really does rooftop like us. We are the kings of open air and entertainment, and it's not just cinema. So my dream is to have a rooftop venue in all major cities, and it's a place where people know they can go for live music, great DJs, great film. They can go for unique events, launches. We do the whole lot. We're not just a cinema, even though we're a Rooftop Cinema Club. I think eventually we'll become known as the place you go if you want to have a great time on a rooftop. There'll be nights where there'll be a world class DJ, and the screens will just be pumping out great visuals. That's where we're heading with Rooftop. That's the dream, to make sure that we are the place. If you want to be out amongst the stars, outside, in a built up area in a city, you come to Rooftop, and we show you the best night of your life. And
Love
that's
that.
the dream. Fun film.
And my final question is a three-parter, so you're going to have to bear with me. So when
Oh, finish on a high. I like it.
So, when your best commercial movie success, as in what do you go to if it's recycling content, whatever it is that you think has done the best for
Brilliant.
you
Got the
over the
answer to
years?
that. Yeah, yeah,
I'd
yeah,
like to know your best Sunday afternoon hangover on the couch. What do you switch on? And then,
yeah,
as
yeah.
your dad of two, and we're all living that demographic at the moment, your best movie to watch.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So my go-to, we used to have a running joke that was going to be called the Top Gun Cinema Club. So basically, in the early days, Mr. Tom Cruise, I've not met, but hopefully one day I will, and hopefully he'll be able to high five me because I've probably made him a ton of money. Was just in the early days that was the movie. We play it 4 or 5 times a month. You know, we don't often play multiple movies. We do sometimes, but we literally guaranteed sellout. I think people just love that movie because it's so fun, isn't it? It's just silly, great Hollywood, 1987 classic, the cult classic of movies. But that was always the one that built the business in the early days. And so if I
Totally
ever
thought you
needed
were
to
going
fill
to say Star
spots,
Wars. Totally thought you were going to say
no,
Star Wars.
no, but no, you know what? No, no, no. People laughing at Star Wars because I played them a lot. Couldn't get the rights in the early days. Lucasfilms were really hard to get the rights. Yeah, they're not as
Ah,
much now because they're owned by Disney, obviously. But in the early days, it was actually quite hard to get the rights for Star Wars. And I think that was maybe the reason why. So that's probably the reason why it wasn't the biggest movie. Where stuff like Top Gun, Back to the Future, but Top Gun was the number one. It was our go-to, play it anytime, anywhere, any day, sell out. People coming dressed up, aviators on, you know, the whole shebang. Loved it. So massive fan of that. Thank you, Tom Cruise and Top Gun, for helping build this business. My hangover one, look, man, I love all film, but I'm definitely Top Gun's a good example of that. I love feel good, funny. I love stuff like Wolf of Wall Street. It's naughty, but I just love it. I love those. I'm definitely an 80s child. I love anything where I don't have to think too much and it just brings me joy. The Goonies, the ones I've already mentioned,
yeah,
those are my Sunday. I tell you what I watched the other day, and I loved them. Austin Powers. I started
yeah,
watching the Austin Powers again. Hilarious, ridiculous. You know, I'm a circus guy. It's full of those kind of those gags, those kind of slapstick comedy. That's my go-to. I love to laugh. Movies for me, don't get me wrong, I love a great horror movie or a great thriller. But if I'm hungover, I need something that's just gonna make me roll about laughing and make me feel good. So that's what I'd say for that. And then with my kids, oh man, I tell you what, I watched the other day, and they absolutely love Ratatouille. So that's nearly like that's early 2000s, I think, Ratatouille. They love that kind of movie. We watch all the movies together. I've just taken to the Mario Brothers movie. We watch. In fact, I'm watching most of my. I'm loving life now because I started watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well. I watched the first Teenage Mutant Turtle, which is 1990. Don't quote me on this. Something like that. And I watched that with my oldest son, who's 9, and he absolutely loves it. So I'm living the dream, man. I was a massive fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and now my sons are basically running around the house saying "cowabunga," and I'm like, this is the best thing about being a dad, you know. And then we started playing the video games, and we just completed all the video games together. So watching turtle movies and playing turtle video games, I'm literally pinching myself, thinking, "This is this a dream?" I feel like a child again because they brought me into their world, but it's my world as well. It's something that when I think about what made me happy as a kid, I was running around thinking I was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. So there we
my
go.
God,
Thank you,
that's
boys.
amazing. My
Yeah,
favorite
yeah.
for the kids to watch. I've got girls rather than
What
boys.
about yeah, 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 yeah.
Definitely Adventures in Babysitting is my tip for kind of like girls watching kind of like, movies because it's kind of like just got
Oh,
the
cool.
80s kind of like stuff in it as well, which
Oh, brilliant.
cool. And you get a couple of celebrities that pop up in there before they were famous, which is always kind of
Oh,
a good thing
brilliant.
to look at as well. So we like that one as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Jerry, thank you so
Oh,
much for taking
congrats.
the time. Thanks so much
No,
for having
thank
a
you.
chat.
Thanks for the time.
It's amazing when you talk
Yeah.
about movies, how much your whole kind of like, expression kind of like completely changes. So
Oh,
you
thanks,
can
man.
be an entrepreneur who's completely passionate about what they do.
I'm blessed that I've got a job where my job is to entertain people. I've always been thankful for that. So just, you know what? If you're feeling down or even if you're celebrating, come to Rooftop. We'll look after you. We're going to make you smile. Whatever your day's happening, we are escapism and come and just have some fun. The world needs it. So thank you for supporting us with what you're doing as well here. Not only building us great teams, but also doing stuff like this, which is just so important to us to let people know what we do. So thanks. Appreciate it.